Good morning. Welcome to Just for Today, a time of eclectic reading, sharing of perspectives, meditation, and prayer. I'm Reverend Rafe Ellis, Senior Minister and Spiritual Leader at the newly joined Centers for Spiritual Living of Greater Baltimore and Columbia. Today is May 9th. Yeah, May 9th. Let's double check. So, what I do is I just look around my office and whatever book spine catches my attention, I pull it off the shelf, open it up, and wherever it lands, that's the reading for this morning. And then I share whatever comes alive in me reading that and invite you to do the same. So this morning, what caught my attention is Reading the Bible Again for the First Time by Marcus J. Borg. It's a book that I came across, or that came to me as a requirement, in all honesty, in ministerial school. And so I opened it up and landed on page 102, Central Meanings of Israel's Primal Narrative. And here's what the first paragraph offers us. I return briefly to the question of historicity, not to the question of how much of the Exodus story and subsequent events really happened. I do so because what is at stake in the question? It is not simply that, quote, the modern mind, end quote, has difficulty with the most spectacular elements of these stories and needs reassurance that they need not be taken literally. Rather, it is that how we address the question of historicity, historic affects and is affected by how we see God and the ways that God interacts in the world. For me, the most poignant part of that is this idea of returning to anything, to take a second look and a third look and a fourth look, not because of necessarily the believability or even the need to believe the elements of a story of history, so much as to recognize and own how our conditioned thinking impacts what we're reading, which then impacts what we know or think we know, which then impacts what we experience and how we show up in the world. I'm not going to go into the Exodus story, but it's not lost on me that the Exodus story in current parts of our social narrative right now would be being removed from libraries, would be disallowed right now, because the Exodus story is, for many people, a story that would fall under the DEI umbrella, diversity, equity, and inclusion umbrella. To look at the history of an enslaved people and their journey to freedom, their journey to emancipation, their journey to liberation. And how does everything we've been taught, how does our history, how does the version of history that we've each been given impact our experience of history, and thus the lesson available to us in history? I think it's a pretty valuable question, and I love how life, spirit, creation, call it what you will, works in picking these readings every morning, because it is certainly not the human me that's doing it. I'm not that well versed. I'm not that spot on with remembering, oh, that's in this book, that's in that book. Um, but I have gotten and am continuing to get pretty good at letting myself be guided and dispelling the idea even of what risk is. Because when I first started this, it was like a whole lot of brain noise about what a risky endeavor this is to not be prepared. Um, and what had occurred to me was that I am infinitely prepared because I am infinite intelligence and form, just like you, just like you. And so I think um, part of what I'm learning through this adventure is that we're way more prepared than we know. And it's only when we take risks that we get to know how prepared we really were. And so I think that's part of what this reading is offering us, is to take another look and then take another look and maybe never settle for certainty. Uh, my experience of certainty is that it is the it is the locked door of a closed mind. When I'm absolutely certain and unwilling to even question or entertain a question, my mind has gone closed. And it's not long after that that my heart closes. And so I invite you to consider, how can you be more open? Where can you be more open? Where are you limiting your own emancipation, your own liberation through certainty of history? So I don't see anybody logged on this morning, so I'm going to go ahead and move us into our time of meditation. If you're watching this later, this is a 5-minute meditation practice. It's really an introductory time to help folks begin to build a practice, to get used to setting aside time to meditate. And so I invite you to just be present with whatever is for the next 5 minutes. To not, as much as possible, to just notice and stop yourself from assigning anything good or bad to what you're noticing. To refrain from assigning any value to it at all, other than the simple value of noticing it. Don't try to push any thoughts away. Don't try to create any thoughts. If there's noise in your environment, it's part of your meditation. Be with it and see what happens for you. Just try it on. Okay, here we go. There's only one. There's only one everything. Because there is only one substance. One ever existent substance. One substance that simply has always been, has no beginning. And what has no beginning can have no end. It is eternal. And being the one substance, everything must be created out of it. Created out of it, everything must contain it. So when we follow that logical thread, everything is it, expressing in multiplicity. One substance, moving itself into expression through this thing called desire, intention, thought, idea, whatever word we associate with it. It is simply creation expressing itself, expanding its experience of itself as it expresses the infinite possibility of itself. Never running out of new ways to be. It just simply expresses. And empowering its expression of itself with itself. Every expression of it has the authority, the agency to use the creative power of thought, desire, imagination, idea. That I am that in form, and that everyone listening is that in form. Everyone who will never listen is that in form. Everything, everyone, all that we are surrounded by, the visible, the invisible, all creation express it. And so I claim and affirm the authority, the agency, the movement of consciousness, the movement of this one source, this one substance, is the activity of my life. It is the activity of this thing I call my mind. And I claim and affirm that accepting responsibility to be aware, to be intentional, to be purposeful, to live in alignment with the spiritual truth of being comes easily and effortlessly. That there is a joy in the exploration. That there is profound excitement. That there is exhilaration in the exploration. That there is a sense of safety, that beyond safety, there is a sense of complete abandonment to explore, to be open, to question what more is here, what is fully present that is available for me to see, to know, to feel, to experience. I speak a word claiming and affirming extrication from my own limited thinking. That the courage within me is the courage of creation itself. To explore, knowing that there's absolute safety in exploring one's own self, which is what I'm always exploring the human self, exploring the divine self, the self, awakening to the self. Wow. Holy wow. So I simply let that resonate through every fiber of my being. And I celebrate. I celebrate the activity of natural law, the activity of physical law, the activity of spiritual law, the same law, just different names. The law of a creation that cannot say no to itself, cannot be divided. And so the doer of creation, law, receives the idea, receives the impress, receives the intention, receives the desire, and acts upon it to make it so. So I celebrate however that happens. And I let go of any need or idea that I need to control the doing process. But rather, I surrender myself to show up and do as I am guided to do by the activity of law. I say yes to following the path, to following the breadcrumbs. I say yes, knowing that my divine yes is always met with the provision for the vision. Always. So I let go. I let it be. And claim and affirm because it's so. Ashe. Shalom. Aho. Amin. Amen. And so it is. Namaste.